Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey there, private practice heroes. It's Kathy Colaiacovo, and welcome back to the Marketing Your Private Practice with Kathy C podcast. This is week 2 in the Marketing Your Practice in 1 Hour a Week series. Last time, I walked you through spending 1 hour writing an article, your anchor content, and also creating some of that beginning parts of our catalyst content, which is the social media content you're going to want to have as well as part of your overall content marketing plan. This lesson and this week is all about formatting those content pieces for your social media platforms and prepping that content to post online. Because without formatting, that content will not be as effective as it could be. And I want to ensure you're not making some of the most common mistakes that people make when it comes to online marketing, especially the worst one that so many people do, and I cannot seem to get them to stop. Auto-posting the exact same content on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all at the same time too. That is the biggest waste of marketing time there is, and this episode will explain why. Now, this lesson is the 4th in my series that is all focused on marketing your practice or business in 1 hour a week. If you haven't already, be sure to check out those previous episodes, number 168, 66, and 65. Or some of what we talk about today may not make sense. But for this lesson, we're going to be focusing on what we do in week number 2 and what to do with this hour of marketing. We're actually going to allot it in this way. Formatting your social media content is going to be about 25 minutes of the hour. Creating your image content is going to be about 20 minutes, and then networking online about 15 minutes. First, we're going to start off with the formatting of the social media content. Now, last week, what happened in that episode was we created the article, the anchor content, and at the same time, we created the social media content that we wanted to use and ideas for the images. The content that we wanted to use for social media was 2 brilliance tips, so 2 educational tips based on whatever that content piece was, that article that you wrote, and also 2 blog promotional posts that were created. Those were really mini advertisements on why someone should read the article when it's going to be posted on your website as a blog. We wrote the basics for it, and then this week we're going to format it. And the reason the formatting is so critical to marketing success is because draft content is not ready to go and publish content. Formatting is what turns your ideas and the base words that you created into actual pieces of content for your social media channels. Content that is ready to share, ready to schedule, and ready to get posted in front of people. And you might be thinking, well, I already wrote it. Why do I need to format it, Kathy? Well, here's why. A caption that looks great on Instagram can actually fall flat on LinkedIn or Facebook. Formatting is what makes your content platform ready, which means when people see it, they're going to be able to see it, read it, and take action. Think about it. How many times have you ever written a post for social media that has the words link in bio? But then you auto-posted it to Facebook. Well, link in bio works on Instagram, but it doesn't work on Facebook and it doesn't work on LinkedIn. But a lot of people do that. You formatted it for only one of those channels, but posted it everywhere. Lots of emojis can make sense on Instagram as well, but not necessarily fit the same way on a LinkedIn post. Facebook can handle clickable links and Instagram can't. This is why the formatting is so important. It makes sure that every piece of content you put out there fits the space that it's being shared on. And it makes your marketing, number one, look consistent, look polished and professional. But most important of all, it ensures that it can do its job. Sit back and think about this. The post that you said auto post from Insta to your Facebook page that had the words link in bio. This is the best example that I always find people really understand why formatting is so critical. When someone sees that post on your Facebook page, tell me, where is your link in bio on Facebook? It doesn't exist. That piece of content was literally a waste of time. Instead, you should have scheduled the one for Insta, copied it, added a line to replace the words link in bio, and changed it instead to say something like click here to learn more and have the actual clickable link to the blog post on your website. And then on Facebook, they could actually click the link and go and learn more. And if you're like anybody I teach this lesson to in my Thrive Marketing Academy, you're now sitting there going, oh my God, she's right. Why have I been doing this? Well, you were doing it thinking it was saving you time, the same reason that everybody else was doing it. But in fact, it was wasting a ton of time and all the content. Now, when you sit down and spend 25 minutes for formatting your social media content, we're going to look at those posts that we created last time and format each one effectively for each channel. Now, I don't mean you have to rewrite everything, okay? I want to be really clear about this. All I do with this is literally copy and paste it. I create things typically first for Instagram. I create content first and I create images first because formatting for the other ones is easier to go from Insta to Facebook or LinkedIn. So we create the content for Instagram. You're going to take that idea for those brilliance tips that you wrote. I often like to have one shorter one and one that might be a little bit longer on the content. You take those, you are going to format them. So all you literally have to do to format it properly is copy and paste it and have a version with the words link in bio that you use on Instagram and a version that says click the link to learn more and the link for LinkedIn or Facebook. And that's all you have to do here. It doesn't take long. I mean, it's literally under a minute for anyone to go and do that and make an edit and fix it up. But that's why it's so critical that you think about the formatting that you're doing here. Because you want to make sure that if you're taking the time to put content out on Facebook or LinkedIn, that you're putting it there in a way that it actually helps people take action. And if they do take action, they get to the right place as well. And this is the thing to understand about repurposing. It means if you're making those 4 posts that we talked about, but you actually copy and do a different version of it with a few different words to go on Facebook and LinkedIn, each post is getting used 3 times. So you actually have 12 pieces of content from those 4 initial pieces. And I bet you never thought about it that way, did you? You can literally triple the work of those 4 pieces of content simply by posting the content on different channels at different days and times and having them formatted so they best fit the channel you're posting them on. So what are some of these ways that you should be formatting this content? You can put emojis in them for Instagram. You can use some hashtags at the end. You can make sure that you say words like save this tip or DM me if you want to learn more, but you don't put links with it because links aren't clickable for most people on Instagram. Now, that same piece of content, to format it for Facebook or LinkedIn, you can have a couple emojis, but don't put a ton in there. Okay, keep it at a minimum for emojis on Facebook and LinkedIn. You could add a sentence that maybe invites people, to comment or encourages them to engage. Like, have you tried this with your clients? Something like that. And then you want to make sure that you have a link if you are using one where you intend them to come back and go to the blog that you've posted on your website. That is going to be key for both of these. And the other thing I would say about the brilliance tips in particular, you want to make sure that you remember these are supposed to be educational. So you can have a CTA at the end, but ideally remember that you're not selling with these. You're trying to give people some good information and encourage them to engage with you back and forth. So that might be where you add a question at the end, like, what do you think about this? Have you tried this? And try to encourage those conversations. Now, when you go to format any of your content for the blog promotional post that we talked about, which is your sales type of content, you're going to definitely have a link added to these. You have to remember they are designed to drive traffic, but they still should sound natural and human. So always look at these and format them and ensure you've written them for the end result in a way that if you said those words out loud, face to face to somebody, they would sound like you. If it sounds really odd and weird and kind of salesy and sleazy salesy, change it. Change the words up and just write them the exact same way you would say it to somebody. You definitely want to follow that hook intro, then you want to give them the information and then have a CTA at the end. So follow that formula. And then you want to make sure that at the end you add some specific words. If it's Instagram that you're putting it on, you're going to say, DM me if you want the link or click the link in my bio to my blog. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, then you want to make sure that you've got the link actually in there. I typically like to add some words before I just put the link there. I always say you can learn more here or check out the article here, or you can read about all the steps here, and then I have the link. That's how you format those kinds of pieces of content to ensure that they do the best job possible when they get onto your social media channels. And make sure that the wording matches what people can actually do. If you tell them, click here if you want to read more, the link that you send them to needs to be to read that exact stuff. It can't go to your home page in hopes that they'll find your blog and then get to your main blog page and find the specific blog you were talking about. Every blog out there, when it is done and published on your website, has a very specific URL. Always make sure you're using that very specific URL. And the other hint that I can give you here, the big bonus about making sure that you format things the best way possible, post all of this content on different days and different times. Stagger your posts. And when you do that, you're actually going to have the best chance of reaching more people. Each platform has its own rhythm, it has its own activity, it has its own way where, and times of day even, where people are on them more than others. Maybe you have somebody that's on all three channels, but if your Insta got posted at 10 this morning and your Facebook page at 7 tonight and LinkedIn at 2 in the afternoon, the odds are very slim, number one, that that person who is connected to you everywhere is going to see them all at those exact times. And in fact, the chances are better that they have an opportunity to see that because you have put it at different times on different places. And you can even use different days. It doesn't have to be the same day. When you post the same content on different days and different times, the thing you're not doing is repeating yourself. And you're increasing your visibility, giving your content a second chance to be seen by a different audience segment. Or it could be the same audience, but they're active at different times on the different channels. It's one of the simplest ways to stretch your reach with the content that you've created without adding more work. It doesn't take a ton of time if you're using, for instance, Meta to schedule your Facebook and Instagram. You just literally copy the content in there. You tell it, I want on Instagram this one. Great. You've got your content. You have the link in bio there. Then you click the button, schedule it for whatever day and time. Then you have the same content again. Click for going on your Facebook page, add the words. Here's the link if you want to check it out. Add the link, pick the day and time. It doesn't take a lot more time to do that. That is what we do when it comes to formatting our content. You've now spent about 25 minutes formatting those pieces of content for the different channels that you're going to use them on. They're all ready to go and schedule online, but we're not doing that now. That's going to happen in another week and in another hour that we do for our marketing. What you want to do now is spend your next 20 minutes creating the image content. The image content is the images that are going to go with these captions, these content pieces you've written for social media. You really do want to have images that go with them. You can put content out there without it, but it does go a lot farther with images for sure. Video helps reach as well. A picture says 1,000 words, and it really does help by doing this. Now, in our previous week, we created some images, just the ideas, and now we're going to actually create the images. And we're going to take 20 minutes to do this. And the way that I look at this is if you had 2 brilliance tips and you had 2 blog promotional posts that you're going to create, you need to know, for starters, how many images you need to make each week. I always know exactly how many images I need to create every cycle of content. In this case, in this example, we're doing 2 brilliance tips and 2 blog promotional posts. I want an image to go with each one of those. Ultimately, I'm probably going to want to create 4 images. Here's how I'm going to use them. 2 single images are definitely going to go with those brilliance tips, 1 image with each tip. I could use one of those or another image to go with the blog or the newsletter itself when we do that next week, because all of those need some images in them as well to add visual variety to them. And then I typically like to make sure that any of my clients are creating at least 1 carousel post. So a carousel post, if you haven't heard the term before, is a post where you might have several images that people can slide through. In this case, for this example, we're going to assume that we're going to create 4 images. And the 4th one is going to be more of a carousel image. Let's say we had 3 steps to XXX, whatever this article was. Then we'd want to have at least 4 images, a title of what the article was, and then step 1 was step 2 and step 3. It's just a way to have those all put together. Now, I have to say, as I'm talking about this, I know that this is going to get a little challenging. So I think what I will do is make a follow along video to go with this so I can show you a little bit more about how I would do all of this with these images in my Canva account and how I could make it all work. I kind of feel that as I look at my notes here to talk about, I think that will probably be a lot easier for people to follow along a video. So just know that wherever you're listening into this, there will be somewhere underneath the show notes a link to a video on YouTube that I will do that will show you a little bit more on the images and how I do that. Now it's time to sit down. We know we're going to do 3 single images and a carousel image for this. Last week, when we created our content for the images, the words that might go on the images, we knew that we pulled out those short one-liners to use on an image to go with the brilliance tips. I've got 2 short one-liners, and then I've got words to go on these blog promotional posts. So maybe I have a plain or a simple image that would go out for one of those. And then I know that one of the images we talked about a couple steps. I'm going to have a carousel for images. I've got some images that I wrote down last week that said, put in the title and put in 3 different steps. I do this every week with my podcast. I have what I call it the takeaway image. I know every week that the image is going to be exactly the title of the podcast and 3 takeaways from the podcast with a CTA at the end to listen in. When you have that template idea in your head, it makes it a lot easier to do all of this. And that's what makes it easier for people to follow my system and stick to my rule of 5 minutes max for making marketing images, which I know for some people hearing that for the first time, they panic. I get people saying all that, Kathy, what do you mean 5 minutes for making a marketing image? I take a half an hour to make an image. Well, once we get this going and we have this system going, this MVP system, you will not take and you should not take more than 5 minutes to make an image because you know what the content is. You've got some templates already created. It's not like you're creating an image from scratch every time. With all of these systems in place, that's what makes it so much easier to do. And it's why you actually can make these images very fast and very easy. Here's how we would do these images. You're going to go into Canva. I'll be honest, I assume everybody in the world uses Canva, and that's what you're using. If you're not, just go with me here. Whatever system you might be using, great, you can go to it. I'm assuming you have some templates already set up in your Canva account, that you have things organized really well in there. We're going to go to our templates for the brilliance tips. So we're going to go for the first one. We're going to go in there. You should already know your fonts, your colors, everything that you're going to need. And all you're going to do at this point is you're going to take that idea that you had for the image to go with the brilliance tip number 1 and put it into the tip graphic template. And that's it. You're done. Then you're going to do the same thing for the tip number 2. Take whatever content you created to be the image, and you're going to drop it in your template, and you're done. Can you see why it takes less than 5 minutes now to make these images? It's not that complicated. The most complicated one is going to be a carousel one where you might have to put 4 or 5 images together. But even then, if you have a template, you know what you're going to have. In my case, as my example, I've got the title of the podcast. Well, I already know what it is. Copy paste. There's image 1 done. I know what the 3 different takeaways are from my lesson. In your case, you might know the 3 different steps that you have that you shared in the article. Copy paste step 1, copy paste step 2, copy paste step 3. They're all in there, and now you're done. And you've got that finished. With all of these templates and with a system like this in place, it really does not take that much time. That system is huge in saving you time when it comes to doing the marketing. Once they're all ready, what I typically do, and this is why I recommend people pay for a Canva paid account, is because the 150 Canadian a year, it's like about 120 American, that money is well spent to be able to hit the resize button. So what I do is I make sure I have these templates saved in different sizes, because when you post an image on Instagram, these days the ideal size is 1350 by 1080 pixels. They're not as ideal necessarily on Facebook or Instagram. Now, because you have a copy essentially of each image and you have it in a different size, you actually now have 8 different images that you have to go with your 4 different posts. When you're putting them out there, again, this makes it look like all different content that you've got out there. Well, once you have finished creating those images and you've got the second version of it there that you need to have sized up to use on Facebook or LinkedIn, then you're ready to download the images to your computer, all 8 images, because then you have them saved where you own them. Now, I know a lot of people don't do this. They leave their images in Canva, and I think that's a big mistake. These are assets you've created. You should be getting them off that system and into your own file storage system that you have on your computer. I come back and use these all the time for other things. Maybe in the future, I'm creating a PowerPoint lesson for something and I want an image with a special word on it. Well, because I have a system for saving my images, file naming the images, naming the files where I store them all, it's very easy to come back and pull out new content whenever it's needed. I always have that ready to go and ready to use at any time. I do recommend, if you're not used to doing this, download those images, save them to your computer, and save the final one in clearly labeled folders. I save them with a keyword-rich name. They are not saved as image 5267432. They are saved with words like episode 152, marketing strategy, content plan, and systems. I put keywords on them for several reasons, but more so that I can find them again in the future if I want to. And that's all key to saving time in the future and being able to reuse and repurpose your content that you create for your marketing. Once you've got this done, then the next 15 minutes you're going to spend is going to be going online on social media and networking and engaging with folks. And that's the end of your hour. You spent 25 minutes creating the content and formatting it for social media, about 20 minutes creating those images that you needed, and then you spend about 15 minutes doing some networking online. Now, the networking online is one of the most important parts of your marketing hours, and it's going to happen again in week 3 and week 4. But explaining what to do in that deserves a little more time and space than I could give it in this episode. So I'm going to have a separate episode dedicated to sharing with you what to do with your 15 minutes of networking time online. It will be episode 170, and it's how you can do marketing for 1 hour a week in your practice by being nice for just 15 minutes. And so the nice is actually my system for networking, is connecting and engaging. I'm going to teach you about that and the daily social 7 checklist that I have on what you should do when you're spending your 15 minutes online. And I'm just going to remind you here, if you skip that 15 minutes of networking, just know this: none of the other planned marketing that we're going to be doing here is going to be near as effective. Getting social and getting online is truly the secret sauce that makes your social media marketing work. Never discount the value of that time. And that takes us to your action steps this week. You spent your hour creating and formatting the content that you created from last week. At this point, you've got your Brilliance tips formatted for each different platform. You've got your 2 blog promotional posts formatted and ready to go on the different platforms as well. You've got those 4 images that we wanted to create with a second version resized for Facebook and LinkedIn, meaning you've got 8 images. And then when you're all done that, hopefully you've gone over to episode 170, learning what to do with 15 minutes of networking time online. By the end of this, everything you created last week is going to be platform ready to schedule. And next week, we're going to work on your newsletter and getting it formatted and scheduled to go out too. We're not actually scheduling anything at this point. We're still working on what we're putting into these 1 hours each week. Be sure to hit follow wherever you're listening in to the podcast to get notified when that next episode that's going to walk you through week 3 of marketing your practice in 1 hour a week and what to do will be live. And that's it for today. That is all we needed to do in week 2. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in and following along with these lessons. And be sure to check the show notes so that you can find the link to that tutorial video that I'm going to have on the images and screen sharing how to make that system work a little bit better for you. Don't miss the next episode of 170 on what to do with your 15 minutes of networking online. And remember, to thrive in practice means having systems and templates that help you get your marketing done fast, easy, and effectively. After all, it's that marketing that's going to be bringing you new clients. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.